The CNBC app. Global market news in one place. Customizable sections and personalized alerts. Stocks tracking, interactive charts and market insights all in your hands. Stay connected. Stay informed. Download the CNBC app today.
A very warm welcome to Squawk Box Europe. I'm Steve Sedgwick in London with Juliana Tattelbaum at the centre of the wild private equity world in Berlin. And these are your headlines. The CBO warning President Trump's big, beautiful bill will add almost $2.5 trillion to the deficit as Elon Musk ramps up his assault, calling on lawmakers to kill the bill. London Mayor Sadiq Khan tells our very own Tanya he welcomes the efforts of Keir Starmer and Donald Trump on getting a trade deal over the line, but laments the UK's exit from the EU 5 years on.
I think this Prime Minister is trying to make the best of a bad hand. He's talked about resetting relations with the EU. I'm really pleased we've got a new trade deal with the European Union. We've got to build upon that.
And making Europe great again. Rising opportunities on the continent dominating discussions here in Berlin at the event dubbed Private Markets' most senior gathering.
Is in the midst of this turbulence and noise in the US, we have seen capital be redirected towards Europe. The capital deployment has been heavily skewed towards Europe. 65% of our direct investment activity in partnership with our core GPs has been in Europe.
Hey everybody, lovely to see you today. Look, I'm going to be brutally blunt about this as well. The travel bans that Donald Trump has brought in a whole host of countries, Chad, Afghanistan, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, etc., etc. They are apparently because of US security issues as well. But let's be brutally honest about it. The major terrorist attacks and most recent incident in Boulder, Colorado, included nationalities not on the list. Ladies and gentlemen, you only have to look at where the attackers came from 9/11 to say none of them came from the list of countries that we're talking about here. Boulder, Colorado, the appalling action of an Egyptian national charged with tossing gasoline bombs at a pro-Israeli rally. That was an Egyptian. It wasn't anybody from these other nations. So you've got to ask, what's it all about? Anyway, I'm just going to leave that as an open question because I don't know the answer. US President Donald Trump has signed a proclamation banning the entry of nationals from 12 countries into the United States, with travel from 7 further nations also partially restricted. As I mentioned, Afghanistan, Haiti, Yemen amongst the 12 nations on the list, with the president citing national security concerns as the need for the order. Now, in the latest development in the row between the Trump administration and Harvard, another story that is bubbling over the whole time, the president has said he will deny visas for foreign students planning to study at the university. Mr. Trump has also threatened Columbia University's accreditation, claiming it failed to meet standards required by violating federal anti-discrimination laws. So 2 important stories. But why are we leading with them at the top of Squawk Box? I'll come to that in a few moments' time. Now, yesterday he called it a disgusting abomination. Now, Elon Musk has ramped up his attacks on Trump's big, beautiful bill by claiming it will condemn America to debt slavery. Elon Musk, erstwhile ally of Donald Trump, who spent hundreds of millions of dollars helping Donald Trump get elected, is now claiming Trump's landmark bill will condemn America to debt slavery. Musk is urging lawmakers to kill the bill, slating it on social media in dozens of posts. Okay, let's just take a step back. This is a man who said he's going to step back from Doge and from the administration because 24/7 he's going to work on his companies. And tweet. Dozens of posts on social media. Analysis by the Congressional Budget Office, by the way, which is non-partisan, has estimated that Trump's big, beautiful bill will add $2.4 trillion to federal budget deficits over the next decade. It also suggested that 11 million, well, it's actually 10.9 million people more could be left without health insurance by 2034 as a result of the bill. This as billionaires and corporates get tax cuts. The White House shrugged off the analysis as one big gimmick, saying it used an artificial baseline that doesn't factor in 2017's tax cuts. Well, I tell you what, though, why don't I, just before I get to JT, tell you that the equally non-partisan Committee for Responsible Federal Budget has said when taking into consideration interest payments, the bill could rise to $3 trillion over a decade or $5 trillion if those aforementioned temporary tax cuts from before were made permanent. Let's get to Juliana. She's going to have some context on this as well. Juliana, I've given you a whole host of top stories. Two of them are about national security and Harvard. The others are about the big, beautiful bill. Our viewers might historically have expected us to start off with the latter rather than the former. But the reason why we started with the former is by design. Because Donald Trump and his administration are full of incredibly smart people. I don't care what anyone says. These are very smart people. They know exactly what they're doing with this Harvard story. They know exactly what they're doing with this immigration story, because I think it's a distraction technique. My view, your view is the following.
That's a really interesting take, Steve. And when I was reading through the latest headlines that you just highlighted there, what stuck out to me from the latest crackdown on foreign students in entering the U.S., Harvard specifically now, is what this could do to relations between the U.S. and China. We know China doesn't like when President Trump targets Chinese students, and it comes at a time when the relationship between Xi and Trump is on thin ice already. And when you look at this new proclamation, it's not the first time that Trump has tried to ban foreign students from entering Harvard, but he's using a new path this time around. The proclamation says the university has extensive entanglements with foreign countries, including their adversaries, and cites the universities receiving funding from China. So, one takeaway for me is that this certainly dims the prospects of a positive outcome here on trade talks between the U.S. and China.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, then that's the other story, isn't it? What is it Mr. Trump said? Sorry, I lose track. There are so many Trump stories. I've got about 6 listed here as well. Donald Trump saying she is extremely hard to deal with. The Chinese are just trying to work out where we're at, where we're at with the tariffs, where we're at with the trade conversation. It's not about just rare earths, is it? It's not just about some of these other issues. It's about the broader issue. And I think, the Chinese aren't playing ball the way Trump would have hoped they would have done at such an early stage. I'll come back to you because we've got so many great stories out of Berlin, including the side story of why you weren't on the big Berlin super returns run yesterday, which I know took place. Little source tells me. Anyway, I'll come back to you a little bit later on. Thanks very much indeed for that. Right, the European Union and the US are progressing on trade talks, but there were no breakthroughs during a meeting in Paris. EU Trade Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič said talks are heading in the right direction after meeting with the US Trade Representative Jameson Greer, but criticised US levies on steel and aluminium imports. He said talks would continue in DC.
After this discussion, we both concluded that we are advancing in the right direction at pace. And as you know, our teams are currently discussing all the issues in the Washington, D.C. They will spend most of the week there in very concrete topic-by-topic discussion. And our goal, of course, is to maintain the momentum. And we agree that after this technical talks would be concluded, it will come again back to our video conferencing and assess the progress and charter the way forward.
Okay, if you had to name a country in Europe, in the EU, that had the closest links with the United States, you'd probably say Ireland, wouldn't you, thinking about it? Culturally, historically, the enormous flows of people over the Atlantic over the decades and centuries. You'd say Ireland, and then the massive investment that US companies have made across the country. Well, having said that, Ireland is now at the sharp end of trade uncertainty, with concerns over how tariffs could hit its key tech and pharmaceutical sectors, which rely heavily on major US firms. Well, Michael Lowen is the CEO of IDA Ireland, which is the agency responsible for foreign direct investment, and joins us now. Michael, lovely to see you.
Good morning, Steve. Yep.
This is really complicated for Ireland because I just mentioned there, and I think I was just touching the surface on the enormous historical business and social links between Ireland and the United States as well. Is what the administration doing here myopic and actually threatening to break some of those incredible bonds?
Yeah, so I think you're correct. First of all, there is very strong relationships between Ireland and the US back over 100 years. Actually, last year we celebrated 100 years of those relationships. And you've outlined quite clearly the investment that's come from the US into Ireland, which is incredibly strong. But also, just to be, it's a bilateral, it's two-way. So Ireland is actually the 7th largest investor in the US. So as we sit here this morning, and later this morning, 200,000 people in the US will get up to go to work in Irish companies. Mm-hmm. That's actually the same number of people that are getting up in Ireland this morning to go to work for US companies. So it's incredible that Ireland, it's been a real beneficial in terms of a two-way flow in terms of investment. I think we should remember that as well.
You're very clear to me. Okay, so let me just ask you then a very blunt question. What is the trade surplus that Ireland has with the United States and the trade deficit the US has with Ireland?
Yeah, so if you look at goods and services, obviously if you put the two together, actually it's in the US benefit by over 100 billion.
Right.
Okay, but if you look at goods alone, it's about 70 billion. And the vast majority of that is actually within the pharmaceutical industry, and all of that, 80% of that actually is in unfinished product. Okay. So it's actually product that's going back supporting manufacturing operations in the US to turn into final product for
yeah, and you've virtually with that answer preempted my next question. So what's in it for America to have its pharmaceutical products partially made, partially manufactured in Ireland rather than actually bringing it home to the States?
Yeah, so I think if there's a couple of things. If we think about the FDI flows and what the value of Ireland has been, maybe I'll speak to that first. First of all, when you see the value of Ireland, it's about the stability, it's the pro-enterprise, it's the talent, the availability of the skills that's there as well, and it's a track record of success. So it's a proven location that can be successful and can scale your business, whether you're in manufacturing or whether you're in services. And obviously, we've seen both happening within Ireland. Maybe to go to your point of life sciences companies, I'm just back from the US actually just over 10 days ago, and I met a number of senior C-suites across a number of industries. But in the manufacturing industries in particular, they have said a few things. One is they're international companies. They need international supply chains to serve international markets, to access international talent, and they're going to continue to do that because the strength of the international supply chains are well understood. In fact, we saw the benefits of them during COVID, and particularly so, I think, in the healthcare space. So as we look forward, I think for Ireland, what's important for us is while there is a high level of uncertainty in terms of policy direction, and geopolitical tension that's happening. For Ireland and indeed for Europe, it's important that we focus on ensuring we're a safe haven, that we can be a location where you can invest. And you probably heard at the top of your show that investment flows are coming towards Europe, and that's because investors look for certainty. They look for areas that there's policy certainty, and certainly Ireland and Europe can supply that.
Why do you think those amazing I obviously, I'm a huge fan of going over to Ireland. I've been over there dozens of times professionally and personally over the years as well. And I've seen the transformation of Dublin. I've been down in Cork. I've been seeing the extraordinary US investments in the country, which has helped lift it extraordinarily. Why do you think those business leaders from those massive US companies are not louder in supporting Ireland and Europe and their investments?
Well, I think, first of all, I think when we look at those US companies, or indeed all international investors, they are speaking to the necessity for policy and for certainty. And I think we are hearing that, and we're hearing that consistently, both within Europe and indeed within North America. And I think that's what they need to do. We need to ensure that, that policy certainty, because if you're making a decision, irrespective of you're making a personal decision or indeed a decision in terms of investment, you want to know the environment in which you're investing in. You want to have a level of certainty of the direction of travel. Mm-hmm. And that's important because if you're looking for long-term investments, and it's no different, when you look at global supply chains, these are decade-long investments. It takes probably 5-6 years to bring an investment up, and then you're looking at 10-20 years actually to capitalise on that investment. So they need policy certainty, and I think that's what's critically important, and that's what industry is calling for.
So frustration that the message isn't necessarily getting across to the administration, despite all the industrial logic you just mentioned there as well. But of course, it's not the Taoiseach, it's not the Irish government that's doing the actual negotiation, it's the European Union. Now, every survey I've ever seen, so the Irish are some of the most Europhile people within the bloc, without doubt as well. The benefits have been quite clear as well. But is there any frustration actually that you also have with the way that the Commission, the way that Europe is dealing with this? Actually, is there anything actually Europe could be doing better to either explain the case or negotiate the case?
No, well, sorry, in short, the answer is no. I think we're very comfortable, and you know, our engagement through our Taoiseach and Taoiseach with the European Commission is very strong. Obviously, we've had our own bilateral discussions in DC. Both Taoiseach and Taoiseach were there in March and in April, respectively. Again, just to reinforce not just Ireland's position, but Europe's position as well in that context. So, look, we're very comfortable. I think, look, remember that the US-Europe is the largest trading bloc in the world, over 4 trillion of trade on a daily basis. So like it's almost incumbent on both of us to ensure we find a solution that works here. And of course, from a European perspective and an Irish perspective, we are very much saying it's 0 for 0. Let's reduce barriers, let's ensure that the innovation continues and the prosperity continues on both sides of the Atlantic. Because remember, this has been prosperity for both the US multinationals, the US, population, but also for Europe in terms of the European companies and the European population as well. And of course, Ireland has been a beneficiary of that.
And Michael, you won't hear a more bored commentator or correspondent than myself asking about Brexit. But having said that, we have seen progress in recent weeks as well. I was at Lancaster House with the rapprochement continuing as well. That can only benefit Ireland and the UK's relationship, can't it?
Absolutely, and we're delighted to see that. I think, as from an Ireland perspective, the UK is our nearest neighbour, a long relationship as well with the UK, and certainly we're delighted to see the relationship both from the Irish government with the new UK government, but also between the UK and Europe as well. Really positive to see those developments.
Brilliant. And as I said to you off camera, I'm really looking forward to seeing the Irish Lions the British and Irish.
The British and Irish Lions, yeah, and we wish them all the best, of course, in their
Do you think anyone apart from the Irish will make it into the first 15?
I'd imagine there will.
Covered in bread. Not many Scots, though. But we won't say that. Michael, lovely to see you.
And you too. Thank you.
Welshman, for that matter. Yes, indeed. Michael, lovely to see you, and thank you very much for your time. Michael Lowen is the CEO of IDA Ireland. Coming up on the show, another rate cut is on the cards from the ECB today. But how close is it getting to the landing zone? We'll be asking Annetta that question in Frankfurt. That's not Annetta, by the way, just in case you're wondering. Oh, plus, game on for Nintendo as it launches its Switch 2 console today. But tariffs and shortages could leave some gamers frustrated. We'll be crossing out to Kaori, who I never knew was a gamer, in Tokyo this hour. And we're going to have more from Super Return in Berlin. Giuliani will be speaking to Bain's head of EMEA Private Equity, Alex Schmitz. That's coming up in 13 minutes' time. Welcome back. The European Central Bank is widely expected to cut rates for an 8th time this cycle. Doesn't seem like it, does it? 8 already, bringing its deposit rate down to 2%. This after May's inflation print for the Eurozone dropped below the ECB's 2% target. We'll also get fresh quarterly inflation and GDP projections with an upgrade on the cards. Despite continuing trade tensions, a Reuters poll sees growth at a mighty 0.9% this year, which brings me to the question, Annetta, lovely to see you as ever. Are these, and I know it's a really basic question, but are these 8 interest rate cuts actually working? I mean, the cost of money has gone down aggressively, pretty much halving. Is it working? Or because we're still only growing at around about 1% in the Eurozone.
Well, I think it still needs time until the recent rate cuts will be fully baked into the system, because the transmission of monetary policy is only taking its effect with a very long time lag. They say up to 3 quarters it could actually take. So it remains to be seen, and that's why the ECB also might actually start to err on the side of caution after this rate cut today. We're expecting a pause in July, and then possibly another 1 or 2 rate cuts during the course of the second half of this year, because the disinflationary effect, that's at least what currently is expected will continue also during the course of this year, because clearly the short-term effects are rather disinflationary, but we don't know what the Trump policies, etc., will mean actually for a reinflationary effect, which could then happen in the medium term. And so the ECB is not yet decided where they actually stand, and that's why we're also going to get a scenario analysis for the first time ever from the ECB today for the inflation and GDP forecast.
All right, super duper. Thank you very much indeed. I will be glued to my screen watching your coverage a little bit later on. OK, let's just get out. And, I'm going to go straight to the NATO presser in Brussels, because you've got the US Defence Secretary, Mr. Hegseth, talking, and Mark Rutte, the Sec-Gen of NATO. Let's listen to what they have to say.
I would argue, and if you just look in plain speak at the commitments in the budgets of NATO countries, then President Trump, to restore NATO as an alliance. He did it in his first term, saying, you can't freeload, you need to spend, you need to be a part of that commitment. European countries stepped up. Now we're seeing even more so, with even higher targets that Ambassador Whitaker and the Secretary General have set. We're talking about capabilities today, and that's important. You got to know what you're spending it on. And then that's going to be reflected, we believe, and the reason I'm here is to make sure every country in NATO understands every shoulder has to be to the plow. Every country has to contribute at that level of 5% as a recognition of the nature of the threat. It can't be about the flags that we love. It has to be about the formations that we have. It's that hard power that actually deters. And it can't just be U.S. capabilities. So the United States is proud to be here, to stand with our allies, but our message is going to continue to be clear. It's deterrence and peace through strength, but it can't be reliance. It cannot and will not be reliance on America. In a world of a lot of threats, where America is poised to help take on those threats. I was just recently in the Indo-Pacific. We were very clear about those threats. We're prepared to step up. We need our allies to step up as well as we stand alongside them. So thank you for helping us have some of those hard conversations, those necessary conversations. And we're going to be talking to all of our allies, as the ambassador has been, that 5% is where we need to be considering the threats we face in the world today. And we'll have that conversation robustly and constructively. So, Secretary General,
thank you
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You got it.
See you later, guys.
Thank you.
I'll just make a couple of comments on this, Bun. Being a bit of a veteran of various NATO meetings over the years, he's right and he's wrong. Look, the truth of the matter is Trump was a catalyst, and a very important catalyst, for extra spending from NATO in Europe. No doubt about it. I remember clearly the July 2018 lambasting of the previous Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg at a breakfast meeting in NATO. The President, Trump as he was then at the time, pretty much hijacked it and said, basically, you can't have the Russian oil and Russian gas and at the same time expect us to defend you. He was right. But for Mr. Hegseth to say that it's the US which has galvanised the alliance, I've got to be honest, I think the war in Ukraine was probably an equal catalyst as well. But again, there is a kernel of truth in what he's saying about how Trump has helped force those nations to spend more. The second point is getting to 5% across the board is going to be nigh on impossible. There are countries there, important countries, the likes of the Portuguese, the likes of the Italians, the likes of the Spanish, who aren't even at 2% yet. They have a roadmap to 2% and beyond, but they're not even there. And watching how one of the great spenders of NATO, the British, are struggling to get themselves to 2.5%, 3%. It's tortuous. To get that doubled to 5%, it's going to be nigh on impossible. I will make one more comment as well. The US does not spend at 5%. The US spends north of 3%, but of course, in terms of actual money spent on defence, it dwarfs what the others spend. But even the US would struggle to get anywhere near 5%. We'll discuss this a lot in coming days and weeks. Plus, we've got a really big NATO meeting at The Hague later on this month, which we will cover. The European Commission and ECB have given Bulgaria the green light to join the Eurozone from the start of next year, making it the 21st country to adopt the single currency. Reports suggest around half of Bulgarian citizens are sceptical about the switch from the lev, fearing an uptick in prices. Sylvia Amaro, lovely to see you. I know you would love to have gotten involved in that NATO story because you've covered it as much as I have, but you're not allowed because you've got to concentrate on Bulgaria. Look, I have enormous empathy and understanding for the Bulgarians who are saying, if we switch from the left to the euro, prices are going to go through the roof. And do you know what? They're not wrong, are they? Because the examples of everyone who's done it, most recently the Croatians who switched the kuna to the euro as well, there is no doubt about it. There is price inflation.
There is. The Croats would say so. But at the same time, they've also seen a huge uptick in tourism. So
they weren't doing too badly beforehand,
they were not doing too bad, but it has helped as well. Yeah. So these are the two sides of the equation here, right? Ultimately, the Bulgarians will have to decide ultimately whether they want to be part of the Eurozone. That is meant to bring more stability. It is also expected to bring more investment into the country. Or on the other hand, whether they would rather stick to the currency that they have and essentially to avoid an increase in prices. But what we have witnessed yesterday was both the European Commission and the European Central Bank basically giving their green light for Bulgaria to join the Eurozone, making it potentially the 21st country to join the euro area. And this is very important because it marks another shift in the narrative here for the Eurozone. If we take just a step back and forget the country itself, but look at the dynamics of the Eurozone, it is important because this is the same bloc that has struggled through several crises. Of course, the wider bloc, the EU, had to witness a country leaving the UK. So now there are only 27 member states. But what we're witnessing still is that there are parts of the European continent that are still keen to join the European project, and in this case that are still keen to join the Eurozone as well. The next moment to follow here is the meeting of finance ministers on July the 8th. But once again, the expectation there is that they will also give their green light for Bulgaria to join the Eurozone. And so perhaps, in a year's time, when we talk about the ECB meeting in Frankfurt, there will be another central bank member there.